Next Monday on an all-new Buffy. A timeless beauty.
Xander?
I love you.
An unimaginable secret.
What kind of girl travels with a mummified corpse?
A kiss for all eternity.
Where's Xander? We need to find him.
You want life? You're gonna have to take mine.
An all-new Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Next Monday. Get home before dark.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Season 2, Episode 4, Inca Mummy Girl, written by Matt Kean and Joe Rinkenmeyer, writers of Season 1, Episode 6, The Pack, and directed by Ellen S. Pressman, director of Season 1, Episode 9, Puppet Show, is the Season 2 counterpart to Season 1, Episode 4, Teacher's Pet. Again, Xander diverges from his attraction to Buffy to a seductive supernatural creature. This time, however, it's not a predatory femme fatale wanting to eat him, but a nice, inexperienced doppelganger to Buffy who doesn't want to eat him at all, but will eat other people to be with him. Like The Pack, it has problematic appropriative depictions of other cultures, even as the writers seemingly try to be respectful in their acknowledgement. The Inca are the main subject, but several cultures get stereotyped depictions at a big intercultural costume party. And the whole episode is generally cringeworthy, evidence of the show's general datedness.
It's Carbon Day.
It starts with the teens at a museum field trip talking about the upcoming student exchange program. Xander is into it until he realizes that Empata, the Peruvian guy staying with Buffy, might be a good-looking hunk, and he gets obnoxiously jealous. We get our first indication that Xander is from an abusive household, as he jokes that his father once tried to sell him into slavery. That could just be a throwaway line of a teenager complaining about a parent being grumpy, but it will turn out to be foreshadowing of Xander's toxic relationship with his father. In The Pack, they see some bullies messing around while on a field trip. Buffy moves to attack, and then Xander goes instead because he thinks he can take care of it better without brute force. In Inca Mummy Girl, they see a bully messing around while on a field trip. Buffy moves to attack, and then Willow goes instead because she can take care of it better without brute force.
And I think we already dejaed this vu.
Willow is moderately successful at talking down the bully, Rodney. He avoids messing with the display for as long as she's in the room. It shows how much Buffy has had a good influence on her, that she has the confidence to do something like that, far from her timidness in Season 1, Episode 1, Welcome to the Hellmouth. The guide introduces the Inca Mummy Girl, a princess who was sacrificed to the god Sebenkaya and turned into a hideous mummy. The character is inspired by the real-life Mummy Juanita, the preserved remains of an Inca girl sacrificed to the gods on the mountain Ampato. One of the writers probably read about it in the National Geographic issue of June 1996. Nearby the mountain Ampato is the mountain Sabancaya. As far as I can tell, Sabancaya is not actually an Inca god. The writers made that up. The writers merged the mummy Juanita with the Egyptian mummy of King Tutankhamun, its associated curse, and the 1932 film The Mummy. Supposedly, when Howard Carter broke into the pharaoh's tomb, there was a warning about death pursuing any who would disturb his rest, which archaeologists ignored and then each suffered mysterious deaths. Actually, a tabloid made it up. Other tabloids followed suit, and Carter lived to a ripe old age. But it was enough to inspire a bunch of pulp fiction and then eventually The Mummy. The Mummy is about an evil sorcerer from ancient Egypt named Imhotep, played by Boris Karloff, who enchants his mummified corpse to rise should anyone disturb the tomb. Upon rising in the modern day, he kills a bunch of people while searching for the reincarnation of his beloved, Princess Ankha's Amun, and finds her in Helen Grosvenor? This movie is inconsistent. There is a gothic romance element where he intends to mummify her and resurrect Ankh-Amun. In a trance, she remembers who she was and prays to Isis to destroy the magic scroll, keeping him alive. Her love interest then rescues her from the ritual, and they live happily ever after. Once free of Willow's gaze, Rodney breaks the seal, resurrecting the mummy girl who sucks the life out of him. It's Imhotep-esque, and also like the she-mantis taking the guy who hassles Xander about being sexually inexperienced. When discussing the upcoming stereotype party, Xander tells Buffy that he's taking Willow, but wants Buffy to come along to make sure it doesn't get romantic. Willow overhears Xander tell Buffy that he loves Willow, but platonically. Oh. Good thing that this episode introduces a new love interest, Oz, a guitar player with the band Dingoes Ate My Baby. Joss really liked this band name. It was even in the crappy pilot. Unfortunately, it comes from a really mean-spirited joke. In 1980, a dingo ran off with and ate the young infant of Lindy Chamberlain Creighton, who was wrongly convicted for her murder. She was acquitted in 1988 following better processing of the evidence, and in 2012, a coroner officially ruled the death as the result of a dingo attack. Despite this conclusion, her cry of, "The dingoes got my baby!"
What?
has become synonymous with an outrageous claim that only a total moron would believe. Buffy is far from the only show to mock her as a stupid murderer.
Maybe the dingo ate your baby.
Hey, I think I hear a dingo eating your baby.
That dingo's got your baby.
But anyone using it participates in a mean joke. The modern equivalent might be calling a band Warning Hot Coffee, now that it's common knowledge that the McDonald's coffee case was mischaracterized as a frivolous lawsuit. Similar to the show's use of a racial slur to describe the Romani people, I think it's a result of ignorance rather than ill intent, but it's still a problem. The Scoobies notice Rodney's absence and investigate. A wacky mummy's tomb guardian attacks them. Upon seeing that the mummy girl was replaced with Mummy Rodney, he leaves. The Scoobies are left confused, only having the broken seal to examine. Buffy goes to pick up Ampada in hopes that he could translate the seal for them, simply because he's from South America, clearly he would be able to translate an ancient Inca artifact. I know as a citizen of the United States, I can read Anasazi petroglyphs like anyone living in the American region. This makes more sense in The Mummy, where the Egyptian they asked to translate hieroglyphics is supposed to be an actual academic expert on the subject, and he's not selected simply for being Egyptian. The mummy girl gets to Ampada first, kills him, and takes his place, now appearing as a hot girl. After this, she is referred to as Ampada, so that's how I'll call her. It's probably a reference to the mountain Ampato. Xander is instantly taken with her beauty. Unlike the she-mantis with her evil pheromones, this is a real attraction. Xander has honestly found someone he's interested in other than Buffy. However, as the Ampada role is associated with the supposedly attractive foreign exchange student who would steal Buffy's heart, it's logical that Ampada the mummy girl would also steal Buffy's heart. If this were an episode of Lost Girl, the super gay-friendly show derivative of Buffy, I think they'd go for it. The fact that she just attracts the one boy, as a matter of fact, represents heterosexist writing. Xander tries to woo Ampada, accidentally making the faux pas of assuming that she doesn't know much English. This could come across as offensive, but she just takes it as the kind gesture that Xander intended it to be. I think that it doesn't translate to the show itself. This is also a kind version of what Cordelia does with her foreign exchange student roommate, her ordering him around like a servant, and him finding relief and pretending that he doesn't know English. And then there's Devon, the lead singer of Dingoes Ate My Baby, who is quite a sexist creep by asserting that his type of girl doesn't have to talk. It evokes dialogue in Welcome to the Hellmouth, where Buffy indicates that Willow is naive for thinking that boys like girls able to speak. Love interest Oz shakes his head, but I don't think he really objects that much. It's not a very firm feminist statement, and I do think it was intended as one. It's similar to an issue in Season 4, Episode 7, The Initiative, where Riley punches Parker for being sexist, but only because Riley likes the girl in question. Xander and Ampada bond over Twinkies. Their romance is cheesy but sweet. Ampada honestly falls for him, but she's visited by her tomb guardian, who insists that she go back to being dead, or paralyzed but conscious, apparently aware of what went on around her, which may be worse. However, she has become attached to life here with Xander, so she kills the guardian, roughly equivalent to the efforts of Imhotep to secure access to Helen. Ampada's similarity to Buffy is emphasized when she tells the story of the 16-year-old Inca princess who was given up as a sacrifice, linking her story to that of Buffy and Prophecy Girl. Unlike Buffy, Ampada's story is destined for tragedy. She has no loved one to breathe life into her with a kiss, only the antithetical power of sucking out others' lives with a kiss. Is that intentional? Probably not, but I'm going for it. I'm telling you guys, thematically, Ampada and Buffy should be the big romance of the episode. Angel can be with Giles. Willow tells Xander to take Ampada to the stereotype party so they get dressed up in their most offensive costumes and get ready to have some fun. Willow dresses as an Inuit but uses the ethnic slur Eskimo, and everyone agrees it isn't sexy, but Oz is attracted to her anyway. Yeah, because who doesn't love a good sexy version of a racist costume? Ironically, Halloween Reign, a non-canon tie-in novel I doubt Joss even read, has a much better conception of a Sunnydale costume party. They have fun dressing everyone as specific characters, and culture's stereotype costumes are acknowledged as racist, with a Native American student picking a fight with a racist white guy in an offensive costume. Ampada starts to re-mummify. She needs to suck out someone's life force. She sneaks away from Xander and starts to seduce some random kid named Jonathan. He initially goes along with it, but feels guilty for getting with someone that Xander thinks is committed to him, so Jonathan bails before Ampada can suck out his life force. For the next 2 seasons, Jonathan will serve as a go-to character whenever the writers need a random kid to do something. It adds a nice bit of continuity to the show that you can recognize that same kid. And then in season 6, he practically becomes a main character. Needy for life force, Ampada loses control and starts sucking out Xander's life force. Roughly equivalent to Imhotep trying to kill Ankh-Ezamun, but she finds the will to stop on her own. Buffy and Giles get suspicious of Ampada and search her things, discovering the dead for an exchange student. Figuring out that she's the mummy, Buffy goes to rescue Xander, while Giles goes to the museum to put the seal back together and return Ampada to death. Similar to Dr. Muller and Frank figuring out that Imhotep is the mummy and going to rescue Helen, Ampada senses that the seal is being messed with and runs off. Buffy and Willow meet up with Xander and fill him in, and they head to the museum. There's a big fight scene. Ampada delays Buffy by shutting her in the coffin. Parallel? Ampada tries to suck out Willow's life force, but even if platonic, Xander's love for Willow is greater than his love for Ampada. Also, we're robbed of a lesbian kiss, so boo. Xander gives Ampada an ultimatum. If she wants to kill people to live, she has to kill him. In a sense, Xander also puts himself up for sacrifice. Out of Buffy, Ampada, and Xander, only he volunteers. His sense of duty overpowers his selfish desire for romance. Ampada cannot bear to kill Xander and allows herself to turn to dust. Similar to the death of Imhotep, a tragic ending to a tragic life. It also serves as foreshadowing to the events of the season finale. The ending of The Mummy is decently feminist. It was before the Hays Code was really enforced, so the production got away with characterization that challenged gender roles. As much as Helen is a damsel, she/Ankh-Ezamun is allowed to actively subvert the villain and defeat him. Frank rescuing her is an afterthought, more or less just there to give him something to do. Inca Mummy Girl does a gender flip of the mummy dynamic. Instead of Imhotep and Helen, it's Ampada and Xander, with Buffy in the Frank role of basically an afterthought. Buffy provides the female fighter action in line with second-wave feminist ideals, but Ampada demonstrates neither the second-wave empowerment of Buffy nor the first-wave empowerment of Helen. Ampada is a traditionally passive figure in her romance, and she is more regressive than not. However, Xander interestingly takes a passive role himself and defeats her evil through acting traditionally feminine, and he effectively upholds the legacy of Helen as a feminist character, similar to him playing the role of damsel in Teacher's Pet. I just can't ignore the idea that the story that should be told is about Ampada and Buffy developing a relationship, even if platonic. With all of the parallels, it should be about Buffy looking into a funhouse mirror to gain a better understanding of herself, much as Faith serves in Season 3. With that in mind, it feels like a waste to make Ampada simply a replacement for Buffy for Xander's romantic interests. Overall, it's only just acceptable as a feminist story, with major flaws. It's clear that Buffy the Vampire Slayer is dated.
It's carbon dating.
The show had a lot of racism that was widely considered acceptable then, but is more recognizably bad now. Inca Mummy Girl is one of the worst offenders. Season 4 episode 22, Restless, also stands out with white Buffy as a figure representing the superior, civilized modern woman, standing against the spirit of the first Slayer, a tribalistic black woman called the Primitive, representing animalistic rage. Buffy defeats her in combat and then insults her natural hair.
In terms of hair care, you really want to say, what kind of impression am I making in the workplace?
I generally attribute this to just plain ignorance. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for a bunch of white people to learn race theory in the 90s, especially if they were hesitant to embrace the internet, as Season 1, Episode 8, I, Robot You, Jane suggests that the Buffy writers were. That doesn't make it right. This was a bad thing that made the world worse. The context just gives us a reference point to determine how it could be fixed. One solution would be to educate the white writers. There wasn't much opportunity for that then, but it's a different world now. The internet has allowed for lots more widespread communication from people who don't need the platforms that require institutional success. As a result, simply being online and participating in social media allows for cultural osmosis that educates on race theory. The Black Lives Matter movement has done a lot to apprise white people of the issues Black people face, and I think Joss Whedon is one of them. In a 2017 interview, he said, "I hope I treated people with respect, but I definitely missed some of the point. I was of that certain era. Of course, now, I'm super woke." He goes on to laugh at the idea that saying he's woke means anything, demonstrating appropriate humility. I have to feel that if he were to make Buffy today, he would be better, if not as good as an actual person of color, at representing racial issues. Another solution would be to simply put people of color in the writer's room, in positions of actual power, able to shut down white writers when they have lapses in judgment. We've seen this happen with the addition of Marissa Tancherone to the Whedon productions. Her passion for Asian representation led her to making a song about it that was included in the Dr. Horrible musical commentary.
Nobody's Asian in the movies, nobody's Asian on TV. If there is a part there for us, it's a ninja, a physician, or a goofy mathematician, or a groupie in the chorus. That's me.
And she had a noticeable impact on Dollhouse and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for getting Asian characters in the main cast, and being able to reject tone-deaf ideas from white writers, like renaming Agent Rice to Agent May. So, if Buffy were to have a person of color in a prominent creative role, like, say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. writer Monica Owusu-Breen as the showrunner instead of Joss, and putting a black lead in place of Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think things would work out great. On July 20th, 2018, it was announced that Buffy the Vampire Slayer would be rebooted with a black lead, and the fan community lost their minds. For years, millennials have been shaking our heads at boomers and Generation Xers who think that remaking something of their generation for the current generation is in some way damaging the original property, or an insult to the original fans, saying that it's about the kids. And we've been mocking Ghostbusters fans who can't stand the property being remade with women. And now, our generation turns around and displays the same entitlement with Buffy. The idea of Buffy being played by another actress, something that's already been done with Kelly Albanese in the motion comics,
Would the three of you please kick my ass?
was deemed a horrific insult to Sarah Michelle Gellar, and the racial politics were deemed a petty excuse to bash her in the show, which many fans believe to be perfect just the way it is. It isn't a big leap to presume racist sentiment is bound up in that. 6 days later, Owusu-Breen made a statement that she would never think to tarnish the childhood memory of the show by recasting any of the characters, and that the reboot would be about a different Slayer. Well, maybe that's what she always intended to do, or maybe she made an early adjustment to the concept after seeing the reaction. Either way, I think the community reaction is shameful, and shows that there is still trouble with recognition of racism.
You know, I really don't remember you being this racist.
I've been using this clip for a reason. People don't remember the show being this racist. It's important to shed light on it and recognize it for what it is. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a great feminist show, but it's also problematic. Rebooting the show with a black lead is a step in the right direction. Making a sequel with a black lead is also good. I'm looking forward to this show, and I think you should too. Please like, share, subscribe, and consider donating to my Patreon. Pledges of $2 or more will earn you an explicit thank you at the end of each video. Thank you.